What's up, comic compadres, and welcome back to the Hood Rat Podcast. I'm here with someone I've been wanting to interview for a long, long time. I met Chuck Brown a handful of times. He's such a cool guy. I'm a big fan of Sanford Green, but I'm also a big fan of David Walker, man. How you doing? How you doing, David?
I'm doing good. This is the first interview I've done at this convention. This feels good. So yeah, I'm doing good. You having a good time?
I'm having a good time. Is this your first big convention back?
My first big convention since the pandemic. Yeah. So it's like very surreal, and I'm still like kind of freaking out about it, but I'm having a good time.
Awesome, man. Yeah. Is there any projects that you have? I always like to start off with that. Is there any projects that you have that are going on in the future you want my audience to know about before we start?
Sure. If people are interested, I've got a new collection of short stories all written by me, drawn by a bunch of different artists called Imposter Syndrome. I'm doing a crowdfunding on it. The book, it's about 120 pages of stories that'll be out. Hopefully, paper shortage and everything, it'll hopefully be out by the summer. That's the goal.
Well, I mean, you're a big writer. You've wrote a lot of stuff for Marvel. One of my favorites is Power Man and Iron Fist.
Oh yeah, which I did with Sanford. Yeah,
I love that. Yeah, all the covers, man.
Yeah.
You two have a really good flow. Like, I mean, your writing and his art like really is like a symphony. Like it's like whenever I see it, it reminds me of like I'm a musician, and I can see it. It looks like music.
Well, thank you.
If music could be drawn, it would be you and Sanford together.
Wow.
You know?
Thank you. That's a huge compliment. Yeah, no, I mean, I love Sanford. I love his work. He's a dear friend. We fight like cats and dogs, but it's, at the end of the day, like sometimes we'll be yelling at each other back and forth, and I'm like, hey, we're still making good art. And, I was a fan of his long before we worked on Power Man and Iron Fist. And so when it happened, it was like, it just felt great. And and that led to Bitter Root.
You guys like you guys remind me of jazz because like jazz when it was in New Orleans, right? Like it was like five guys going up there interviewing, so it's like they had to yell back and forth. One was on the horn, one was on the drum, and you got to go back and forth, and that became jazz. Everybody gets their minute,
gets their moment to shine.
But everybody backs each other up at the same time, right?
No, that's a good analogy. I mean, I like the music analogy, and I also I will joke around with people. I'm like, I always tell people, we're kind of like groups like the Police or Fleetwood Mac, where you would never know they didn't get along, and we get along better than like Andy Summers and Sting did, but and Stuart Copeland. But no, it's like at the end of the day with your art, like whatever's going on behind the scenes shouldn't be reflected in the art itself. So, and again, I love working with him, and we're trying to figure out what our next moves are going to be, which honestly, if I have my way, it'll be more Bitter Root stuff.
Hey, we got David Mack coming through.
What's
up, David? What's up, brother? Hey, but I'm here to talk about Bitter Root. I'm a big fan of Bitter Root. I want to ask about the origins of you, Sanford, and Chuck.
Okay.
How did that happen? Because I remember Chuck telling me like he works in a university, and that's kind of how you guys all kind of like came together. Because you're in Portland.
Yep.
And Sanford and Chuck are in South Carolina. South Carolina, right?
So I met Chuck through Sanford just at conventions. I knew they were friends. Sanford and I were doing Power Man and Iron Fist together. When that book ended at Marvel, Image approached Sanford, asked him if he had anything he wanted to do. Him and Chuck had been developing Bitter Root, but it kind of stalled out for a little bit. And so they came to me and said, hey, we got this thing we're doing. Would you like to get involved and we could pitch it to Image? And I was like, sure, let's do it. So I remember Sanford and I were at Emerald City Comic Con. We had a meeting with Eric Stevenson of Image, and we pitched Bitter Root. And at that point it was still very basic. It was a family of monster hunters during the Harlem Renaissance. And like Stevenson said yes, and then I was like, okay, now we really got to get to work. We got to build this up to be more than just. I always said it can't be just a standard monster hunter book, right? Like there's a million things like that, and so from there, it slowly built, and it was the idea was already there before I came on board. But then Chuck and I started really building it out, putting the the meat and potatoes on the plate, and coming up with the recipe, and it's, all three of us, we have our egos, we have our things, but at the end of the day, we make it work.
And it's how much music influenced you guys in there? Because like I said, man, like when I'm watching Bitterroot, when I'm reading it, I can hear like that, the horns in the background. I can hear the drums in the back. I can hear the bass, the stand-up bass. Like, are you listening to like?
I don't listen to music when I'm writing, but the last couple of years I've been listening to a lot more jazz, especially when I started this, just trying to get into that mindset. But I know Sanford, he's a huge hip hop guy. I'm a hip hop fan, but not like him. Like, you get him talking and he knows
he'll go on
every album, who recorded it, who produced it. And so there's also some hip hop that I would listen to, a lot of like Gangstar, right? Because like Guru and DJ Premier really got that jazz influence. Some Tribe Called Quest, and I do feel like, you were talking about jazz, which I think is a great comparison, but also hip hop, because hip hop has this sort of like, you're creating something out of these other elements, and comics. We're pausing.
It's God. God's talking to us right now.
Make sure you wear your mask.
God's a woman.
Yes, that's true. So you just want to make sure that you respect each other's. Like you got 2 or 3 MCs in a cipher. You just want to make sure you don't step on each other. That you're respectful of the DJ and all that. And so I love the musical comparisons.
How do you and Chuck write together? Like, because like there isn't like a break. In it, it's like you guys are kind of like entwined together. Like you guys are like Siamese twins. When I read it, there's never a break. I can't tell who's writing what. Like, how does that work?
It's a lot of it. It's actually a lot of hard work, and part of it is I've got my voice, Chuck has his voice, and I'm always reminding him that our voices aren't as important as the book itself. We've got to make the sounds read as seamlessly as possible, and so there's just a lot of polishing going on, and a lot of tweaking. Once the art comes in, we'll take a look at the lettering, rewrite the script as need be. And, my philosophy is always, it doesn't matter how, like we just have to do the best book we can. Sanford's art shouldn't be the best Sanford's art can be. It should be the best art Bitterroot can produce, right? Like, we have to put our egos aside enough to make the best book we can.
And, when I read Bitterroot, I read the editorials as well. There's a very academia to it, Is that...
because so all three of us, Sanford, Chuck, and myself, have all worked in higher education, right? Sanford, I can't remember where Chuck works, but Sanford works for Benedict College. I work at Portland State University, and I love that whole component. And so I was, I said early on, let's have some stuff, some backup stuff that will really get people talking, and will get people who don't necessarily read comics will become interested in it. And so that's what we did.
It's for the audience, if you haven't read Bitterroot, always read the last 3 pages. There's a lot of knowledge, a lot of history, and a lot of like the African American experience. And that's very important in comics, and how it must be important for you to represent that voice.
And that's all put together by John Jennings, who's a good friend of ours. He's a professor at UC Riverside. He's also a comic creator.
I know John. Yeah, John's cool. I met him before. He's a really... That guy knows his stuff,
yes.
bro.
And so I went to him. I went to Chuck and Sanford, said, this is what I'd like to do. They were both kind of on the fence. And I was like, we don't need guest pinup so much as we need really intelligent writing that will get people talking. And so that's what we did.
I mean, was it a risk? Because... there's some moments in there where it's kind of like highbrow knowledge. You know what I'm saying? I mean, were you like to the audience, like, either you're gonna stay on the ride or are you just gonna, we're gonna drop you off?
Here's the thing: if you like the comic and you didn't want to read the articles, it wasn't like it was 10 pages of comics and 30 pages of essays. There was just enough. So it was always like, you're welcome to not read it. I met one person who absolutely hated the essays and stuff in the back, and he was like trying to tell me that it was a mistake to do it, and I was like, hey, you could be right, but you're the only person who's ever said it, and you're the only person who's complained about it, and I happen to love them. So, you know, I mean, I look at that stuff, and I think that those essays are better than the comic we've done, right?
Yeah.
And it's nice just to know that they work together, and they you know, and those essays wouldn't exist without the comic, and yet the comic wouldn't be all that it is without the essays. So
I think Bitterroot, out of all the comics I've read, is could really be put into schools, especially the editorials. Because I have a friend that lives in that's an Oakland public school teacher, and they read Bitterroot.
Yeah.
Like he buys like 5 or 6 copies, and they read it in class, and they read the editorials together.
Yep.
You know, like, and it's awesome stuff, and I don't stop doing it.
Yeah,
man,
no, there's at least 3 or 4 universities that in there they have different courses. There's some that have comic studies, some that have race history studies, whatever. And there's someone who was teaching the course on the history of the Harlem Renaissance, and they had their students read it. So there's been a lot of that build up, a lot of the academic world on not just like higher education levels, college, but high school students and even some grade school. We hear from a lot of librarians. I'm always doing little like video conferences with a lot of kids in, you know, young students in like the New York area, up and down the East Coast. And that's just like when I was a kid, you didn't have that.
Yeah.
You know,
no.
So I'm just happy. I'm happy that we're able to reach people on multiple levels.
Did Image allow you guys to add it to the trades?
Yeah, it's everything's in the trades.
I got every issue, so I don't buy it.
Yeah. Oh no, there was in my mind there was never a discussion to be had. It was like we're going to put them, and at some point we're going to do a hardcover collection, and they're going to go in the hardcover collection too.
Well, that's awesome.
And it was funny because my friends do a comic, Bitch Planet, for Image, and their back matter material was great in the comics, and they didn't put it in the trade. And I remember being so just disappointed, and I was like, I'm not going to do this because there's enough people. Again, if you don't want to read it, you can just skip it, right?
Skip it.
So yeah,
but don't skip it. It's gain an IQ bump.
Yep.
And a humanity bump by reading those editorials. But David, man, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy con. You got busy. And you set aside 10 minutes for me, 12 minutes for me.
Nah, it's fine.
I appreciate you coming on, man. I want to talk to you more, but maybe in the future we could talk about some more stuff when I see you at another con, or maybe in San Diego. You know what I'm saying?
I plan on being in San Diego this year. I didn't go. Obviously, there was no con in 2020, 2021. They pushed it back. But I plan on being there just because I've got friends who live in San Diego, and I've been going every year since the late 90s. So to not go has been super disruptive.
You
so
know,
I'll be there.
I talked to John Boy today too.
Yeah.
And a lot of stuff happens at San Diego Comic-Con. Like, that's how we met. That's how Bitterroot started.
Yeah.
That's how we started doing Spawn.
Yeah.
All from San Diego Comic-Con. So it's a super important. I mean, I've always been an attendee.
Yeah.
I never imagined like it was that very important a con where all this beautiful stuff was created. You know?
Yeah. I got to go talk to John Boy today. Where's he at?
He's right there behind you, like right down there on the corner.
Okay.
On the other side in A.
Yeah. He's like, I'm trying to get him to start writing more. Right. Like I don't know.
He's starting his own thing.
Yeah. No. But he's been dragging ass, man. Yeah. So I'm telling everybody watching Hood Rat Comics, right? Hood Rat, no, okay.
Hood Rat Comics.
Hood Rat Comics. Stay tuned for more Hood Rat. I'm messing it up. Doesn't matter. But John Boy is he wrote this short Red Sonja story, which I loved, and him and I we've only known each other for a few years, but I've been really pushing him to write more. And so like once every month or two, I'm like, yo, how's it coming? And I keep telling him, whatever you need from me to help you get writing, because the truth is I'm trying to get him to do a cover for me for something. But he's such a great guy.
Yeah, he is, man.
And we have yet to actually work together, and I would just love to work with him because, like, he's just a good human being. You know?
Is, man. But so are you, man. So you and Chuck and Sanford, man, it's just like, you know, you guys come from the same tree, man. It's a beautiful one, man.
It's good. So thank you, man.
I appreciate you. I appreciate, David F. Walker, where can they find you? Where can they find you?
DavidFWalker.com.
DavidFWalker.com. Everybody go DavidFWalker.com. When does the next Bitterroot come in? It hasn't come out in a bit.
We're trying to figure it out. We're trying to get all of our schedules aligned. Chuck is co-writing Aquaman. Sanford's got something going on at DC or Marvel. But I'm the one who's yelling at the two, because I'm the bad cop in that relationship. I'm the mean dad. So,
Hey.
but we've got to get some
There
more
has
stuff
to be
going.
one.
Yeah, yeah.
There has to be one.
So cool, man.
Thank you, David
Yeah,
F.
definitely.
Walker, guys. I appreciate you, bro.
Take care.